everyone, my name is Amity and this is Read by Amity, and today I'm coming to you with my March wrap-up. In the month of March I read 11 books and approximately 3,500 pages. So let's get started. The first book that I read in the month of March was Walhalla by Maid, and this one was a 3.5 star read for me. I really enjoyed it. It did remind me a fair bit of The Perfect Ruin by Shonora Williams, which was one that I read in February, and I think that I enjoyed that a little bit more. But this was fun. It was really interesting to follow along with, and I just wish that it didn't end as quickly as it did, but it was still a great read nonetheless. The next book that I read in the month of March was Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, and this one was for the Literally Dead book club for the March pick. No. For the February pick. This one I didn't actually get around to finishing in the month of February, so I just finished it off in the month of March. It was way too long-winded for me. I was really disappointed that this wasn't a 5-star read because it was so highly anticipated. But yeah, I just felt like it was very long-winded and the plot points were quite slow, and there were some things that just didn't feel like they suited being in the book. And so unfortunately this book is a 2.75 star rating for me. I just wanted more from Buddy Lee and Ike, and I wish that things were just done a little bit differently in this one. So that one is a little bit upsetting for me, but I'm glad that I finally finished it. The next book that I read in the month of March was And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Buckman. And this one is one that Katie Coulson has introduced, or at least made known to the book world that I've seen, and it has broken many people's hearts, including my own. It was a 5-star read. I think I've read it twice now. I don't know if I could read it again, but I really do think that if you are after something that is somehow heartbreaking and bittersweet and tender all at the same time, then definitely pick this one up because it was short but phenomenal. The next book that I read in the month of March was Somebody's Daughter, which is a memoir by Ashley C. Ford. This one had some really great undertones, but unfortunately I just felt like it was a little bit too brief. Everything was a broad sweeping statement. All of the anecdotes were just a little bit too short for my liking. It felt like she was trying to cover way too many things in one book, and I would have really enjoyed it a little more if she really honed in on a few topics rather than trying to cover such a broad amount of her experience in that one small book. So this one was rated 3.75 for me. Another 3.75 rating that I gave out this month was to Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi. This one was set up to be a 5-star read for me. It follows two sisters, which I love following sisters in stories. I think it's one of my favorite tropes. And they are just dealing with life. They're dealing with the fact that one of them is not well, and I just really expected to love this one. In fact, I think I'm going to end up giving it a reread just to see if it was not it at the time for me, and maybe I'll love it even more in the future. But it is a 3.75 for me as it stands right now. I just felt like I struggled to get into the writing style a bit, but I do have Emergency Contact as well for this author, and I am still interested in picking that one up. So maybe once I pick that one up I'll decide again if I want to reread Yoke. The next book I read in the month of March was The Maid by Nita Prose, and this one I read for Katie Coulson's Smart Salon for the month of March, obviously, and this one was almost a 5-star read for me, and I think that there was just something about the ending that just didn't quite satisfy me the way that I was hoping it would. But otherwise I feel like this book was perfect. It had the right atmosphere, it had the right type of characters in it. I was laughing, I was crying, I was rooting for the main character, and I just really enjoyed this experience. The main character was almost a little bit untrustworthy at times, and it made me feel like I was second guessing everything that I was being told, but I did really enjoy this one. It is a 4.5 star rating for me at the moment, and the person at the bookshop that sold it to me said that there was a movie adaptation or a TV show adaptation coming out or being made, and that Florence Pugh had been cast as Molly the Maid. Can't confirm it, but that was what they said to me, and if that's the case, I am so down to watch that. So that's The Maid by Anita Prose. The next book that I read in the month of March was Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, and this one was recommended by a staff member at my local bookshop, and it was recommended as a depressing romance, which I don't think that it was. I ended up rating this one a 3.75 as well. I just found that it was a little bit too melancholy for my liking, and because it was so melancholy, it was just a little bit slow. But the main character in this story is going through life, trying to figure out what she wants with life, trying to figure out who she is in life, and she does have an undisclosed mental health condition, and in the book that is represented with a dash, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. Yeah, in the book that is represented with the dash. In the audiobook it is represented with the letter X. So you don't actually know what health condition she has. You just follow her. She figures out her symptoms, and as she talks to people, both professionals and people in her life, and what they think it might be and how it's affecting her life. It's a really interesting plot. I just wanted just something a little bit more from this. I don't think that it was a romance. I wouldn't go into it expecting a romance now that I've read it. I wouldn't recommend it as a romance, but it does have like the same sort of essence to it that Sally Rooney's books have. Like just that kind of feeling of nothing is going to make me better. Nothing is going to make me feel better. And yeah, I really appreciated it for what it did. I think that it probably deserves a second read through as well. But that is Sorrow and Bliss. The next one that I read is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, and I read this one for both the book trip hosted by Gabby Reeves, and also the Literally Dead Book Club's March pick, which the live show happened this morning of the day that I'm filming. And this one is a 2.25. I originally rated it 2.5. I've since then bounced between a 1.75 and a 2.25. I think that based on the elements that I did enjoy from it, it deserves a 2.25. But essentially it was way too convoluted. There were a million different character point of views that we were following, and they were all just a little bit too alike each other for me to enjoy it. They kind of mashed themselves into one big slush pile, and yeah, unfortunately that took away from the story, which was one that I could have enjoyed if there were just a smaller cast of characters. And I think that that was something that was also pretty widely discussed throughout the Literally Dead Book Club live show. So yeah, I'm glad to know that I'm not alone in that feeling, because I was really disappointed that I didn't enjoy that read that much. But yeah, unfortunately only a 2.25 for me. Another 2.25 rated book that I read this month was The Arabian Nights. This one is written by an unknown authors, but is translated by Sir Richard Burton, and this is just the leather-bound Canterbury Classics, I want to say. Yes, the leather-bound Canterbury Classics edition. I picked this one up purely for a different video that I am filming soon as well, and I am familiar with some of the stories in it, but I went through and just read the ones that I wasn't familiar with, which I enjoyed them enough. I feel like the writing was very dense and was a lot to get through at times, but I do understand that it is translated work and it's very, very old. So it's kind of what you're signing up for when you read this one. I really enjoyed jumping into this kind of lore and seeing where some of these folk tales originated from. So I do suggest picking it up if you're interested in like this sort of fairy tale folklore. But yeah, this one is a 2.25. I am going to keep this one on my shelves because I do collect children's fairy tales and folk stories, just because it's something that I think if I ever had children I'd want them to also pick up. So I think this one is going to be a great addition to the collection. The second last book that I read this month was one that I actually started last year, but I only finished this month, and it was on my Kindle, and that one is Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. This one was very, very hyped by the book community, both last year and this year, and romance is not my thing, so I wasn't expecting to love it, and I didn't quite like it. Didn't quite love it. It was a 2.75 rating for me again, and I can see where the hype is. I can see why people enjoy it so much, but I just didn't get it, and I just don't think that romance is my thing, so it's probably not something that I'm going to pick up moving forward. But yeah, I gave it a go, and that's all that matters. And the last book that I read in the month of March, I actually just finished it yesterday, is Women and Leadership, written by Julia Gillard and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. This one is a non-fiction work, and it details the lives of women in politics and powerful positions, in leadership positions, in positions in front of the lens, in front of the media, and in front of the public. It was a really interesting insight into that world, and it's one that I think that is really important to have, because it does show what women deal with in these industries. So this one I rated 3.5 stars out of 5. There we have it. That's all of the books that I read in the month of March. I did have a little bit of a slow reading month from about the halfway point onwards, but I still managed to get 11 books read, which was incredible. I didn't expect to read that much this month, as I could feel that reading slump kind of hanging around from February. But yeah, I am really happy with everything that I read, and there were some misses, but there were definitely some hits as well. So I can't wait to see what April brings as well. And yeah, let me know down below if you have read any of the books that I mentioned today, if you enjoyed them, and otherwise I will talk to you in the comments. Bye!